Making a video outside and such. Garden things are doing pretty well. It's getting interesting. Lots of stuff over there. Oh, petunias. Yeah, they're just starting to happen. So, some decent enough colors so far. Pink. Eh. But anyway, got some other interesting ones over there. But anyway, we're not going over there. Um, but yeah, it's lots of stuff growing. So pretty soon, yeah, whoop-de-doo. All right, anyway, so determinism again, Pyrrho and Entercontivod. These people wish to evade the real significance of what we do know to be the origins of life on Earth, and therefore the potential meaning of it all. We're just like that little daisy there. We're just little daisies. Just a manifestation of biology. And oak trees, acorns grow into oak trees, not ephilymps. Ephilymps. Hippopotamuses breed hippopotamus. Blah blah blah. There's no, that irises over there. They're not going to come out some kind of, bizarre manifestation unless you do something, unless you irradiate them or you do something physically, a cause and effect chain of events. And so Pyrrho turns this, uses the the fudge in physics to make declarations about what's a fact. And so instead of just conceding that there's parts of physics where we don't have a videotape, the Heisenberg principle, for example, this idea that the entity, the forces in nature are somehow androgynous. They don't know where they are, who they are, what they are, and they're not. They're cause and effect. It's just that we don't have a videotape of the causes and the effects. And there's a range of outcomes that have to do with the fact that we can't calculate all the influences. It's kind of like a kayak going down the Colorado River or something. There's a ton of influences. We can't calculate them all. We can't predict where the boat's going to go. But what we do know is it's not going to go to Pluto. It's not going to land on one of the moons on Saturn. It's not going to suddenly materialize, on 42nd Street. It's a deterministic cause and effect world we live in, and the biology is just a manifestation of that clockwork and machine-like. And it all has to do with this attraction and repulsion force that exists in the foundations of the function between material bits, protons and electrons, and the force bits, the quanta of photons. So you have electrons and I hope I just said that right. You have electrons and protons. They're this material hard bit. And then you have these photons, which are also probably hard bits, but they're small bits. And they're the force bits. And they manifest in gravity and magnetism, in the nuclear forces. And they're what is moving the material bits around, pushing them, creating tension in the environment. And that tension leads to this complex chemistry eventually. It starts off with the simple hydrogen atom, and then it goes to helium and lithium and blah 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 blah, and we know all of this. There's nothing magical, there's no Sasquatches here, and the only stuff we don't know is just certain particulars. How many hairs are on the black bear? Yeah, okay, we don't know, but we know what the range is. We know there's not an infinite number of hairs. We know the hairs aren't going to materialize on 42nd Street. They're not going to start growing out of the asphalt. So there's no room for anything but an understanding that our neurons are programmed by our environment, by the combination of our biological chemistry, our genetic endowment, and the circumstances of the environment as it's brought on to us, and what kind of stresses and in what order those stresses are imposed, whether our camel's back gets broken when we're 6 years old or whether it doesn't. All of these things are going to decide what your will is and what your psychology is and what your desires are and what your ambitions are and what your knowledge base is. And there's nothing else. There's no such thing as will. There's just ideas. Your brain makes ideas. It combines two circumstances and it adds 2 plus 2. You watch somebody get run over in the intersection because they didn't look both ways, and you say, gee, that looking both ways probably is a good idea. Maybe I'll make sure I do that. Really, maybe I'll do it twice. Look twice, get run over no times. Good little policies. That's an idea. That's not will. That's not free. That's just being given the mathematical components and being able to see the relationship. It's somebody drawing you the picture of the triangle and showing you the squares of the lines, and you can understand the lengths are related to the area of the squares or something. And it gives you an understanding. An understanding is not a will. An understanding is an enlightenment. It's just reasoning and logic. It's a kind of mathematics, and it's determined. It has a logical foundation in mathematics. 2 plus 2 will always equal 4. It doesn't matter what you call 2. It doesn't matter what you call 4. The concept of 2, 2-ness plus 2-ness will equal 4-ness. The end. It's not going to be 5, it's not going to be 7, it's not going to be any of that crap. And so, the whole argument is these people don't like the limiting facts of nature. They don't like the fact that I can point out that 10,000 baby sea turtles will be horribly and brutally killed for one turtle to reach maturation. I got a photograph. Maybe I can't shove it in this video, but some future video I'll put it in. There's a little garter snake caught a toad the other day, right here, and it's eating it alive. And the toad is still, its little throat is still going blah 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 blah. It's still breathing, still trying, and all it's left is his head and his little 2 arms are the only things not eaten by this. The rest of them's already down the snake's. You can already see the rest of them's in the snake. And this is nature. It sucks. It just absolutely fucking sucks, because the day before the toad was doing the same thing to probably a baby snake. And it's just disgusting. It's horrid. And yeah, so they don't like that backdrop to this little fantasy they're having about how they're Neo, and they're gonna save everybody from being in the Matrix, and we're all gonna live eating shit 400 miles deep inside the earth or something, and we'll have a lot of good dance moves, but yeah, that'll be about it. Yeah, no big screen TVs. Fuck that. Fuck these fantasy Jedi bullshit. They're just fucking sadistic masochists. They're masochistic sadists. They're sadomasochists. They're so desperate to validate. They have to create a fake mission statement and a fake notion that they're doing something essential or vital, when clearly they're doing nothing innovative or interesting at all, except a bunch of egocentric pretense of will-powering. Like there's such a thing. Like you don't have to have idea power first. Like idea power isn't exactly what creates willpower. There's no willpower without idea power. So you're just stealing the end product and misidentifying its source, which is an idea in your head. You recognize that, hey, being a dumb drunk isn't much of a way to live a life, and then you say, well, maybe we can do something about that. The idea is what bugs you, and if the idea bugs you enough, then you'll be motivated to do something about it. But if you're able to just slide the idea onto the shelf and say, well, it's not going to make me any more fuckable, so the hell with it. Chicks like a good drunk now and then. Some kind of bullshit rationalization. Or else maybe you're just kind of done with chicks, and so then you just say, who the fuck cares? Yeah, it makes me comfortable. That's part of the irony of this whole conversation, is you're having this conversation with a bunch of people who sit there and seem to need an awful lot of maintenance to make it through their life. They can't take life straight. They got to inject a bunch of fantasy notions and practical augmentations of their life with chemistry to get through it, so to speak. And yet they'll claim they're doing something brilliant, that their notion, that they're accomplishing something. And it's so important that we keep making average Joes to keep living out the average Joe toad snake cycle of consumption and death. First you fuck somebody, and then somebody fucks you, and you all think you're doing something brilliant. No. But that's not the subject. The subject isn't the fact that life is futile and stupid. But the point is that they are negating determinism, because the determinism sort of adds up to that logically. You have to take our origins for what they are, and you have to take the mechanism for what it is, which is just a hunger mechanism. The hungers aren't from some legitimate place. They aren't created by some supercomputer that says, well, what's the best thing I can do, and what's the greatest thing I can create? Oh, some kind of desperate need. Some kind of foolish notion that I have to live another day because whatever Miss Charming pussy might be fall into my lap somehow. It's that backdrop that they're running from, and then they're using this kind of a baby notion of reality where on so many levels it's just nonsense. We know computers aren't affected by quantum irregularities. We know they can do their thing over and over and over again, and they're not going to do anything different. And Windows will load the software, and this will do that, and this will do that. And we know the only time it breaks is because something breaks it, because an error gets injected. It's not a magical break. It's not a random break. It's a break caused by something, an error caused by something. And we function the same way. In this level of the universe, even if this fairy tale of the magical, uncertain factor or something actually existed, which there's no evidence it actually exists, that's just the made-up part. We can't see it, we don't have a videotape, so they decide they can make up any story they want to. So because we don't have a videotape of the actual story, they can go ahead and make up their silly Matrix stories, or their multiverses, or some other fake bullshit. When the simple answer is that, yeah, we just can't see the mechanisms that are causing the effect. And but the mechanisms are dependable and reliable, and just because their math is allowed to use infinities and insanely improbable events and all of that stuff, and not make a total mess, The fact is, none of that stuff ever happens. And if you did the experiment to see if there was any of those things ever did happen, you'd never see them happen. So they're just mathematical fudge. It's a little game they play. Yeah, the math is 99.99999% correct. But what makes it correct is the fact that it's creating this 1% of fudge that's totally unnecessary, because it doesn't really exist. Photons don't go to Pluto. The ones between me and this camera, it goes through the little lens, the little aperture, and it gets confused for a little while. Well, that confusion doesn't mean it goes to Pluto. Even though the math says it's a possibility. No, it's not a possibility. It's never going to happen. The bear's hair is never going to pop out of the asphalt on 42nd Street. Just not going to happen. The oak tree the acorn is not going to grow into an elephant. Not going to happen. So anyway, Piro tells this video, Determinism is stupid. And then Andakadavad makes a video basically saying, oh yes, that's a very great video because, let's all just pretend we don't know the truth. And that's what they want to live on. They want to live on an evasion of the fact that we really do know the true story. We don't need Hansel and Gretel anymore, the 3 bears, or the 3 blind mice, or the 3 pigs, or we don't need Zeus, and we don't need all the Greek gods, and we don't need all the Christian gods, and we don't need the Muslim gods, and we don't need any of this bullshit. And it's all just bullshit. We don't need numerology and channeling and whatever, flat earth truther nonsense, and you just don't need all these fake, phony answers, because the truth is detectable. It's there. It's knowable. And we don't have to be foolish. We can be intelligent and accept that truth. And we could argue about whether there's something to make out of this intelligence thing, this problem solver, in the sense of, is there any real problem that we don't create to solve? Does life solve a problem besides the problems it creates? Do we cure any disease we didn't cause? Maybe that's a valid argument. I don't think so, but I'm just saying, maybe if you want to argue that, but don't evade it with a fantasy and a fairy tale, your little boogeyman behind the tree that you're always going to use as an excuse. I have to have a gun because the boogeymans, they hide behind trees. Sasquatches, they've been seen all over the place. Yeah. Quit using these fake excuses. To have your hope and your and rationalizations and justifications for the preposterously expensive game you're playing with other people's welfare. Quit evading the obvious maliciousness of your sadism and your lack of regard for the pain you cause with your optimism. Take responsibility for it. Own it in some kind of honest way. Don't sit there and evade it with this fake excuse that, the universe is mysterious, and we could be fulfilling all kinds of magical purposes, and we could be doing all kinds of magical things, and we could be here for all kinds of magical intentions. We're supposed to, we're supposed to wait for the giant planetoid to come blow us up, and then the Fifth Element chick will, shoot a ray beam up there, and so we all have to be here, and we all have to do all this stuff so we can save the day. They're just living fake fantasy lives. They're coating it with such a contrived, so artificial a sweetener, that they're mixing into this shit recipe to justify baking this crap, this toxic dish of pain for no gain, just to satisfy silly notions in silly heads about silly missions you're going to accomplish. And the only mission you're going to accomplish is to, puke your last breath and, shit your pants and make a funny face, and that's the end of you. That's all that's going to be. And such. So that's pretty much enough of a rant. But I mean, the truth is in evolution. It's a mechanical mechanism. These machines compete against each other, and through that competition and the attribute of mutation, that this is like grammar school evolution, just spells it out. You have error code. You build something that can be broken. It creates errors. And then you have a competition to see what errors are useful, and change is created through that process. And that's all we are, is machines that have survived a silly test of who's broken the right way on the particular day necessary. When who got lucky. What organism got lucky. The bear wore itself out eating the 5 other people before it got to you. And so you win because the bear was tired. The other guys really beat the bear, but they died. And you just lucked out. I mean, that's the shit that we're made out of. And it's not a great history. It's not an Olympic moment. It's none of that stuff. It's a sad, tragic, pitiful waste of uncalculable amounts of trauma inflicted on feeling organisms. So we can pretend we're on some grand mission in the multiverse. We're doing some essential good work. We're cleaning the streets of the multiverse. We're the street cleaning universe, and in the other universe they're building the houses, and in the other universe they're making blue skies, and we all have our jobs to do. Shit. We're just a funky daisy. We're a funky piece of biology, and we now have the capacity to do this intelligence thing, and the intelligence things lets us climb up the maze walls, and we can just see it's a stupid circular maze. It always ends in the same meat grinder, and it just depends on how long you get to spiral in the toilet water before you finally go down the hole. But that's it. There's no real competition here. There's no real race. You're all going to finish the same way. And there ain't going to be anything beautiful about it. So anyway, now that's enough of a rant maybe. I feel like I could rant some more, but yeah, I'm just going to keep stressing that evolution, it's all there. Evolution is where, just as all the branches of animals branch off of that tree, all the branches of any kind of understanding philosophically of our place in the universe is going to be understood by understanding our origins, because that origin is what creates everything about us, our desires, the fact that we are capable of doing some logic, and the real plateau evolution, where evolution does this plateau thing. So it created single cell organisms, and then it created colony machines, and we're just a colony. We're not really a living thing, we're a colony. And then our intelligence did the same thing. It hit a new plateau of abstraction or deviation from the old staircase. a new dimension of evolution, and now that what's evolving are ideas, and understanding, knowledge bases, and I think there's enough data, enough facts to have the trial and present the evidence that intelligence doesn't have anything to do but solve problems. That's the only function, that's the only use it can possibly have. And the truth is, there aren't any problems on Mars that need solving. There's no problems on Venus that need solving. No problems on Saturn that need solving, because there's no toads getting eaten by snakes. And there's no silly humans chasing silly ambitions because they're hungry, because they're forced into a deprivation state in need of comfort. And again, we don't exist to be comfortable. We exist to be uncomfortable, to be motivated to fight. And stupid. Anyway, it's probably the third time I said that now. Okay, I'll end it this time. Yeah. So, just a wonderfully pleasant day, but it's going to get 20 degrees colder tomorrow. I mean, this weather is just so fucked up. But, I did enjoy the last 3 days, and warm weather. I enjoyed it in the sense that it got me going, got some work done. And I'm feeling a bit better, getting over the Lyme and such, so, yeah. So, sort of on the road to summer. Lots of uncertainties about things going on in the background here, but see what happens and such. So, until next time and such.